The first significant starting pitcher on the trade market has been moved, and it bodes very well for the Guardians if they want to trade a starting pitcher.
Tanner Bagby of the Guardians, and you're listening to Locked On Guardians.
You are Locked On Guardians, your daily podcast on the Cleveland Guardians. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, what's up, Guardians fans? Thanks for hanging out with us for the next half hour on today's episode of Locked On Guardians, the only daily podcast that covers your team every day, from the majors, the minors, the draft, and everything in between. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the number one sports podcast network. I'm Justin Lada, 22 Coast for the last 3 years and counting, and my friend and co-host Jeff Ellis. I've also spent 18 years covering the Guardians minor league system as a prospect writer and editor.
As you mentioned, I'm Jeff Ellis. I've been here since Locked On started baseball. Before that, I was a national writer at Scout and 24/7 focused on prospects in the draft. I want to thank you for making today's episode your first listen today and every day, wherever it is you get podcasts. So as a big shout out to all of our everydayers out there and the people we see every day in the comments. Gave some shout outs through the course of the week. There's so many of you. Disc golf. That's someone I haven't given a shout out to. I always see him in the comments every single day. If I haven't gotten to you, trust me, I will. But thank you all for joining us each and every day here at the number one sports podcasting network.
Yes, we appreciate each and every one of you. Shout out to the insiders as well. So Jeff spent yesterday's show, if you haven't had a chance to listen yet, talking about where to find impact hitters. So today, we're going to look at which hitters in the Guardian system have the best impact tools. We'll do our annual prospect tools draft, starting with position players. But we'll start today's show with the Sonny Gray trade to Boston and what it means for the starting pitcher market, and if the Guardians can flip a starter for a hitter. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5. And if that bet wins, you're going to get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download FanDuel today. So the Cardinals, if you're living under a rock or you just have been busy or you're not necessarily tuning into the landscape of baseball, St. Louis Cardinals are kind of tearing things down a little bit. For the most part, they are. So their selling kind of starts with Sonny Gray going to the Red Sox, who've been looking for upper level rotation depth. I wouldn't necessarily call Gray a number two. The Red Sox.
I do. I mean, his FIP was so good. Like the under the hood data is really strong with him.
I mean, the FIP was good. The fastball velocity is declining. He's older.
Well, that's why he doesn't use the fastball that much anymore. 22% usage on it last year, I believe. Yeah.
So he goes to the Red Sox for 1 year for a lot of money. We'll talk about that. But the Red Sox, what it looks like is the Cardinals, what they were aiming for in this trade was, to get Sonny Gray off the roster while they could, because they have been looking for that trade and they'll look for other ones. But one of their returns was Brandon Clark, who's a very athletic and big left-handed pitcher who can touch 100 with the fastball, has really good fastball metrics. I was listening to Jeff Ponce, who we had on last week from Baseball America, talking about he has one of the most unique sweepers in the minors because he throws in the upper 80s and it has so much horizontal sweep, and it's just very unlike anything else. But there's also a guy with health and control issues. So that gives him, a lot of relief risk, but it's a high trait arm, which we know a lot of teams are going for. So that gives us an inkling into what the Cardinals are looking at. And they also get Richard Fitz, who's a mid-20s back rotation type guy. The big thing to me that was a surprise in this deal was that the Cardinals are sending $20 million to the Red Sox to cover the deal. So Gray essentially gets $41 million because he'll have a $10 million buyout at the end of the year. So he's essentially going to get $41 million for the season, and the Cardinals are covering half of that. And the Red Sox, they gave up, a high-end relief arm with a lot of risk in Clark, and then Fitz, who they're upgrading from a guy who's like a 5-starter to, I would say, Gray is a high-performing 3. I can't go as far as a 2 on him right now. Maybe 5 years ago.
The thing I'll say with Gray is you give this guy all the credit in the world for how many times he's reinvented himself. Like, remember, he got traded to New York and had his struggles and he's bounced, but what's made him so good is his sweeper. He might have the best sweeper in baseball, like full stop. Like it's definitely top 5. And that's why he had elite chase rates. He is maybe the best control artist in baseball, which is what ages the most gracefully, guys who have that command and control. So a lot of ground balls, doesn't walk anyone, guys chase and whiff. When they make contact, they hit the ball hard. Like that's the issue. His fastball, he threw 6 different pitches a year ago as well. Like it's a very diverse pitch mix, which I think we used to say, oh, it's too many pitches. Now we're finding, like, depending on how you mix and match and the looks, like that is extremely valuable. Like I think a sweeper is a legit 65, 70 grade pitch. His curveball is still a 60 grade. It's mostly, he's not going to throw it. Well, he throws it more versus lefties than righties. Same thing with his fastball. Like his fastball is a heavy use pitch versus lefties. Versus righties, it's almost never touched. He is just going all sweeper and cutter, I believe.
Sinker. Well, he replaced it with the sinker. The sinker is his number one use fastball for right-handers. Yeah, it's usurped that.
So I think he is.
I never thought, by the way.
Yeah, I never thought Sonny Gray we'd say $41 million. So credit to him. But I think he's a solid guy. I think he's solidly maybe between a 2 and a 3, which is a 2.5 is maybe the best way to put it. And the market is pretty sparse. Like Framber's had health issues, but he's really interesting. Ranger Suarez is great. Not going to butcher the pitcher from Japan, but I think he's going to be kind of more of a mid-rotation guy. Maybe I'll be wrong. I sometimes often am. So, but I think trying to find that guy who can be a solid, like who you can count as a playoff starter, like Sonny Gray can start games for you in the playoffs and you're not going to feel bad about it. Like maybe he's game 3 instead of game 2, but they got a guy for 1 year with the potential to keep him for a second. If he's fantastic, then they don't do the opt out and they pay him.
What is it? 16 million next year?
What it's going to be is, I believe it's 30, but they're going to pay 10 of it either way. So then it's okay. Pay 20 million, and it's like, well, 20 million in free agency. Yeah, probably. So, it's a positive situation for him. They upgrade their rotation. I would argue if you wanted to do a Clark in Cleveland system, it might be Joey Oakey in terms of value. Just that guy who could be a starter, small chance, like a reliever, but has some fantastic pitches. Though I do like Oakey's fastball more. Clark's fastball is very hittable. And that's maybe the theme of this trade. Both Clark and Gray, very hittable fastballs. Like, Gray is this, potential 2-3 starter. Fastball, really mid. Clark has a fantastic velocity and everything, interesting release points, but his fastball has been hittable in the low minors. So it's probably, as you said, a reliever. And Fitz gives you fits, right? Like here's a guy who's on his third org. That always is typically a sign of, teams kind of like you, but no one likes you enough to like really fight to keep you. A year ago at this time, his value was a lot higher. He just didn't step up. People are like, oh, Boston has done a nice job of kind of helping Quinn Priester level up. So with Fitz, like I said, it's his third org. Boston helped Priester level up a bit. They thought maybe they do that with Fitz. And the reason I want to talk about Fitz in particular is because how it relates back to Cleveland. So Fitz has value, but he is a swing guy. I think Logan Allen, even with less control, is more valuable as a lefty. He doesn't maybe have the flashes that Fitz has had, but at the same time, he's had 2 solid major league seasons. So it also kind of shows you a baseline, because St. Louis, the return, they paid $20 million. They got, a top 5 prospect and a guy who no longer qualifies as a prospect, but is probably going to replace Gray in the rotation. So I think it kind of gives us that a degree of valuation with Logan Allen or with one of the other 5s or maybe one of the other guys that could move up and down. That's where this trade really kind of reflects back to Cleveland. I think it helps from the perspective of teams. What did St. Louis want? They wanted a guy they could count on to put on their rotation who was not hyper expensive. And there's value in that for Cleveland in terms of their trade assets with a Logan Allen, with maybe, again, I don't see him trading Saccone because his values are all over the place. But it's like, if you're going to pick between Messick or Cantillo, it's like having these pitchers with multiple years of control with low cost in terms of salary is huge right now.
Yeah, I mean, Allen is a stable starter. He's at least given you innings. He's been healthy, and there is a solid floor there. So that's something the Cardinals clearly valued in Richard Fitz. I think there's a solid floor for him. And they got the other side of it with Clark being the upside arm. Like you said, that could be like a Joey Oakey type. So that's just what the Cardinals are targeting. I think it's important to note for them going forward, because the Cardinals may or may not be one of the best trade fits for the Guardians this offseason. We talked, ad nauseum about Brendan Donovan. So that's something to keep an eye on in terms of what the Cardinals are looking for. They're looking for a package of guys that might give them some stability, but also some upside. And that's why you mentioned, a guy like Oki, and then a guy like Fitz. We'll talk a little bit more about Logan Allen and other pitchers that the Guardians may or may not be able to trade, what it says about the rest of the market. And we'll talk about tools. The Cardinals wanted big tools. We'll talk about who has the best tools in the system among the position players. We do our prospect tools draft coming up next. NBA action is back. There's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. If you miss the start of any of the games this season, you want to ride the hot hand, you want to check in and see maybe this team's going to make a fourth quarter comeback. The Cavs have certainly had a couple of those lately come up short, but you can combine those sorts of live bets into same game parlays for a bigger shot at a payout. I like to go big or go home personally. I do it responsibly. You should too. But it does keep every game exciting, especially when your team is making that late push. The Cavs, they're not back in action until Friday against the Hawks, but there's a lot of NFL action on Thanksgiving. So you're going to want to pay attention to that, maybe sit around, make it more interesting with your friends and family. And right now, if you're a new FanDuel customer, it's a great day to get in on the action because new customers can get $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head over to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Appreciate all of you hanging out with us every single day and making us part of your daily routine with Locked On Guardians. And an even bigger thank you to everybody who has made Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. We're not number one because of us. We're number one because of you. So I appreciate that. You can keep up to date with all things Guardians all off season long, even during the holidays. Hit the bell on YouTube for reaction videos, the latest episode of the show. Auto download on all your audio platforms so we stay in your feed wherever, so you can always catch up if you're busy during the holiday season, or you're going out and working out, you got to walk the dog in the snow. You can warm up with a little baseball talk even during the holiday season. All right, let's wrap
Maybe you're
up.
putting up decorations. That's what I was doing.
Yeah.
I was listening to podcasts and putting up some
There you go.
decorations and listening myself.
Yeah, let us know if you got some fun baseball Christmas decorations. I've always been on the lookout for more baseball themed Christmas decorations. So comment below if you've got any good ones, maybe some recommendations that we can find out there. So a little more on the trades. So we're talking before about how the Cardinals were looking for, big tools with a guy like Clark and a little bit of stability and Fitz. I'm still flabbergasted by the fact the Cardinals are also paying $20 million, half that salary. That's just amazing to me. So that just kind of tells you, like, I don't think, well, there is the stipulation that Gray had a 10-5, so he got to choose whether or not he was going to waive his no trade clause. Like he had a bad experience in New York where they tried to totally change him and it didn't work for him, which has really hurt his value. Obviously, he doesn't have to worry about that now because he's at the end of his career, but it's still pretty good. But, he's a guy who's earned the right to choose where he wants to go. So this might have been one of the few places that they were talking to that he was going to agree to waive it to. So I don't want to sit there and I don't want to overjudge and say, okay, here's the market. It's set. This is what we can compare the, any possibility of trading a Guardians pitcher for a bat. But it gives us a good idea that, reliability is good. You said the market's sparse.
And I think it stands one just quick notice too, is you look at St. Louis, they've had a lot of really interesting pitching prospects and almost zero translation.
Yeah.
Like, for as much as we kind of take it for granted, like guys like Logan Allen and that, not every team is like that. Like the Cardinals kind of have what the Guardians struggles with hitters is what they have with pitchers right now.
Yeah, the problem for the Guardians is, as far as flipping a bat or a pitcher for a bat, is they don't have a ton of proven reliability. Like Williams and Bybee are up there. They don't have a Sonny Gray on this roster unless it's not even Bybee or Williams. Truthfully, it might maybe at closest as Bybee in terms of stability and performance, but he's obviously doesn't have the track record Gray does yet. So they don't have that big piece. I think Allen is the only like stable guy in terms of the back of the rotation. Like Ciccone had one solid year and half a year, and Cantillo, has had flashes but hasn't been super. But it really is a good window into the fact that it is a very seller-friendly market if you're trading any pitchers. So like the Guardians could get a solid return for Allen if they want to flip him. Obviously, the beauty is in the eye of the beholder here, but I think there's at least a reasonable shot to say, like, they could find a controllable outfielder. I'm not saying you're going to get an all-star, but I think there's a possibility if there's a team out there, you could get like a platoon bat who has some control. Like I think legitimately, if you wanted to include Logan Allen in your return for like a Brendan Donovan package, you could do it. You could offer him, and like I wouldn't go Okie and Allen like you were just talking about, but I could include him in a high athletic traits prospect and say that might get the deal done because the Cardinals are looking for more pitching.
I mean, you could probably, if you just wanted a guy like who is potentially a platoon guy who's had some success, it's like you could probably trade Logan Allen for Jesus Sanchez tomorrow after his struggles and with all the outfields Houston has.
He's got 2 years of control.
So it's like, I think there's ways where you can make it work, even if it's not with St. Louis, though you and I both I feel like this is going to get clipped, but I'm just going to go ahead and say it. You and I have both been kind of lusting after Donovan for a few years now.
Yeah.
It's just give me a consistent hitter.
Give
consistent hitter who can help this lineup and hit too.
And he's well sought after for a reason. We keep talking about Donovan. I know some people don't think he's a great target, but a lot of teams are interested in him. You don't get, 5-10 teams interested in a guy unless you're any good. So you shouldn't, demand is what drives all this. So, all right. Speaking of demand and high end tools, you and I have talked a lot about how the Guardians lack impact tools in the system. And
a year ago, at least.
It was a year ago. So the reason we do this annual exercise is to see if the Guardians have improved their ability to land impact tools in the draft, or they've developed them, and where that helps us, kind of understand where the system is and what players other teams could have their eyes on, or, which guys could help Cleveland the most and soon. And because you talked about the hitter side of things yesterday, we'll talk more about it today. So I will go ahead and be generous and give you the first pick. And we're not doing this to build the best one. We're doing this to see where the best tools in the system lie with who and how you put that together. So I'll go ahead and give you the first pick.
So if we're just talking pure tools, I think I'm still going to go with Bazana's hit tool for as much as people. I think there's actually a lot of interesting guys right now for power. So this is intentionally me punting power because I think it's easier to find power. People are going to, just in terms of when you're trying to find one tool, it's easier to find power right now than hit tool. I'm still a big believer in his hit tool. Cooper Ingle was probably the other guy I was considering for this if it had gone the other way. But, when I'm looking at hit tool, it's not just hit. It's kind of the whole thing. Like, he pulls the ball. He has a good eye for the zone. Borders, he's not passive. We looked at some of the data that showed like he's in that perfect kind of range in terms of, some stats. So it's, he just needs to get healthy. Like bottom line, he just needs to get healthy, and health is what held him back this year. I still believe in that being a plus hit tool. And I don't know how many other guys in the system where I'm like, yeah, plus hit tool, potential 300 hitter. I don't know how many other guys I would say that about.
Yeah, when you bake in approach for Bazana, I think it all comes together. Like, and you also have to, characterize like the work ethic too, I think, in this sort of thing. And that's not necessarily a tool on its own, but when you bake that into everything you're looking at with him, everything kind of levels up, right? Like it's almost like like if you're looking at a video game, it's a plus SP, right? Like you could say his makeup and his work ethic drive everything. So you get every little tool gets like a little +5 or a little level up because of
his higher growth potential.
Yeah, something like that. I mean, it's like, when Mario gets a mushroom, right? He can level up a little bit when you do that. That's the best I can come up with in terms of video games. Everybody would know, because my video game playing is very limited to baseball and aliens. So you probably would have made a better reference to that than I did.
Yeah, I was thinking about like Fire Emblem and how some certain characters have higher growth profiles, but that's probably too nerdy, so I'm just gonna stop.
Yeah. Do the Ninja Turtles get something for eating pizza? I played that game way back when.
They get health back, but
they get health back for eating pizza. See, I wish we could do that in real life.
Or
more health for eating pizza.
There's a few other things. My daughter loved that Shredder's Revenge game, so we played it to death.
Yeah,
great game if you have little ones. But yeah, so what are you going with?
Well, speaking of Shredder's Revenge, I've got a name that pairs very well with that, and I'll tell you who I'm picking in our tools draft coming up next. If you need some more Guardians talk to warm you up during the winter, we just talked about the fact that we know you do. It's going to snow actually out here for Thanksgiving. So that's kind of a bummer and not surprised. But you can always follow Jeff at Jeff MLB Draft. You can follow myself at JL_baseball or JL Baseball as well. And you can join the Locked On Guardians Insiders Club. We text daily with the community when I'm not sick or at a concert. We drop news and rumors when we get them to. We ask them for mailbag questions, which we'll do next week. And we do monthly video chats, which we'll also do next week. And we do bonus content for them from time to time as well. So that's joinsubtext.com/LockedOnGuardians to tap in and get some more baseball talk, some more Guardians baseball talk over the winter. Tell a friend, tell a family member at Thanksgiving that you're listening to Locked On Guardians, and only if you like us. If you don't like us, don't tell them that. We don't want you to prejudice anybody.
No, go ahead and tell them. Maybe they'll like us.
I'll take a hate listen. I will.
Well, no, it's just friends. I got things friends are interested in that I have no interest in. So who knows?
Yeah, you never know. All right, so I mentioned that my pick has something to do with the Ninja Turtles. I'm taking not Raphael, but Ralphie.
Does he have size?
He does have size. He does have power. No, sides like the
size.
Yeah, that one totally off my head. Yeah. It would not be my first pick in the Ninja Turtles draft is Raphael, and it is my first pick here because I keep saying I'm all in on Ralphy Velazquez. I don't think anybody in the system is going to get to his level of power that he has. Like he's got legitimately, I think, plus raw power. Like we're talking 60 grade on the 20-80 scouting scale, where 80 is like Aaron Judge and 20 is I don't know, Miles Straw.
Nick Allen. It's Nick Allen. Baseball right now.
So he's legit 60. I think he has got 70 raw power. I think it's harder to get to that in the game. But as good as Bazana is with the hit tool and he can get to all of his power, he doesn't have Ralphie's raw power. And since you took the best hit tool in the system, you're not wrong in saying there's more power guys than there have been in the past, which is kind of shocking. But nobody in the system, I think, has the ability to get to their power and good power as consistently as Ralphie. I think legitimately we're seeing him come around to a guy you can bet on as a corner bat. And I think it's going to be a big year for him. I think everyone's going to be talking about him come midsummer one way or another.
No, I can definitely see that. When I'm, going through and looking at guys, I still have Angel too, but there's part of me that wants to have Baz and Ralphie back to back. Before the end of the year, they might end up, before I put out my final list, it might be the top two guys in system.
Yeah.
The big debate for me with this pick is now I have my choice of power hitters. It's also interesting because I was looking more raw power than anything else when I was kind of putting my list together. So
because teams want big tools they can develop.
Yeah, so I wasn't necessarily Ralphie was actually third on my list in terms of raw. And then the other interesting thing is, if I'm looking speed, again, that's not where this organization stands out to me right now. That's not something that they're really targeting. That I have a long list of guys who stand out for speed. So do I go for defense here? That becomes the new question. That I might go with. And again, it's interesting because there's not a whole lot of plus defenders.
Also, how much of an impact are you going to get from defense? Like
you get a lot. I mean, you get it depending on the position. It's still valuable. Like, I mean, this team was built around defense.
You're talking about speed and defense. Outside of the ill-advised trade that included Sean Murphy and Asturi Ruiz, guys, teams don't trade for.
No, I agree with that, but I do think they're underrated traits often when you're evaluating. But the only reason I'm considering going there is because I have lots of power options. I don't have as many in those two areas, but it's like I might go a little weird here and go Churio's defense in center field because I think it has a chance to be a plus defender up the middle. Because again, I have all of these hit power guys. Looking at raw power, there's a lot of raw power guys to go with. I don't see a lot of defense. I don't see a lot of speed. I think Churio can be a plus defender in center field. So I was looking at someone who's a plus defender at a premium position. I think he'd be a 60 grade defender. He had his ups and downs a year ago, don't get me wrong, but he was also hurt. Sometimes that can really mess up an entire year, as we've seen. So I'm going to give him a little bit of grace. I think he can bounce back. And I still am a firm believer in his defensive upside.
Yeah, I'm not quite as high on Churio's defensive upside as I was a year ago. There were some weird things in Lake County this year. I mean,
I
he
just
was
wonder
then he was
how
not healthy
healthy he
too.
was. Yeah, that's the thing. I wonder
Yeah,
how healthy he was.
I don't think that impacted his defense as much. Like his read, sometimes like you would get really good reads and jumps on the ball, and then sometimes they'd be pretty bad. His route running was okay, but he had some weird moments this year in center field that make me think it's more of a corner profile in terms of defense. Like I'm not saying he can't play center field, but I'm thinking it's probably not like a slam dunk. I don't think we're talking Gold Glove center fielder, and that's where the impact
No, I just
comes
think he's got
from.
a chance to at least be maybe a 55 there. Like,
That's still pretty good. That's still very
that's good.
valuable.
I
If
mean, a
you're,
Gold
yeah,
Glover to me is like a 65, 70 guy most years. Center field
yeah.
has such an elite high ceiling at the position.
Well, it does. I just also would like if I'm taking a guy, if I'm targeting somebody with big tools, that's not the first one I'm going for. And if I am, it's certainly not going to be a guy like Churio. It's going to be a guy that's got way more impact on defense than he does. So this is where things get ugly in the system. Like you talk about, there's multiple power guys you can go for.
Mhm.
I had 3 more on my list for power after this that I was going to go for. If you took power first, you took Ralphie's power first, but obviously you took the one guy in the system who has the best approach. The issue with that is like the rest of the system doesn't have a good approach. Like everybody talks about, there's so many places you can read that talk about hit tool, and they're like, oh, this guy makes a lot of contact. That's great. And I know Ernie Clement just had like the best postseason of all time for the Blue Jays, but that we've seen people in the past give Ernie Clement like a 70 or 80 grade hit tool. And it's like, you can't, I think we've said this multiple times on the show, you can't say hit tool is totally 100% driven by the ability to make contact. Because if that's the case, look how many guys in the system on the Guardians in the past, like Andres Jimenez would have a great hit tool and Miles Straw have a great hit tool because they don't really swing and miss a ton. They make a ton of contact, and it's
Andres
terrible
did
contact.
chase a lot though.
He did, but he made poor quality contact. So that's where I get into. And like I like Cooper Ingles' hit tool in terms of his approach and his ability to make contact, but I'm very concerned about Cooper's impact quality when he makes contact. Like he has the second best approach in the system behind Bazana, bar none, I think. So I'm probably going to go Angel Hanao, I think, for my hit tool, because to me, he represents the best of the blend of the things you need, where he can make contact, he hits the ball hard. The swing decisions could be a little better for him. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt this year. But to me, he's the next best one when you blend all of them together: approach, contact, and impact quality. If I was going to go just on approach and contact, I would go Engel. But I think Hanao's got better impact quality when you talk about hit tool.
No, I can see that. I had Hanao third. I had
Engel ahead of him.
Engel too, just because Hanao had some ups and downs as well this year, and there were points where he wasn't as clean as he was in years past. So I was a little bit more concerned with his overall performance. So that's kind of where I was, like a little bit lower. But I mean, I had them kind of on the same overall grouping. In terms of next tool, again, there's still so much potential power that I feel like I gotta go with speed. And this is where I kind of run on the hurdle. I think I'm going to take Kahlil Watson. I don't even know if he's a great runner, but I don't know who else. It's kind of crazy. Like this organization as a whole, like they don't even have a lot of plus runners in the minors that I know of. I'm sure there's someone I'm forgetting who's like not a top of my head guy, who's not a top 30 guy. Like, because I'm trying to kind of stick to guys who are in the top 30 for this list, or are a recent high pick if they're not, or they're a top 30 but they're not in my top 30, right? Like I'm trying to kind of stick in that area. We are long from the days, was it Gabriel Mejia and Todd Machida and Todd Isaacs, right?
Yeah. Oh,
it's like those type of runners just don't exist in the system at all. Like they have completely punted speed. So I really wasn't sure who, like Welbin Welbin, I don't think runs very well, but it's like I was looking at
he runs good. Yeah.
Aaron Walton, who they added, though I don't think he had some decent data, but I don't think they have like too many guys I'm like plus. So I'm gonna go with speed, because again, I can keep punting power because there's quite a few guys to choose from.
Well, yeah, I'm not taking, there's no more power else to take from, but the Watson speed is good because like there's obviously he doesn't have the most steals in the minors. but it's impact speed, like on the bases, and like he'd be a good pinch runner. It's going to impact him on defense too, which helps. So I 100% agree with that. I had guys that were off the board here, and like I know everyone's going to say Tommy Hawk, he had all those steals last year, and it's like, yeah, but catching in that level is awful. So I'm not going there. I actually looked at Nick Mitchell, who's a guy you like a lot.
I do like Nick Mitchell a lot.
I looked at his speed. Like he's not a center fielder, so like it's not that's not really about his speed. That's more about his overall ability in the outfield. But I like his speed. I think if you put all this stuff together, if you're looking for a guy who has that extra tool, can be like a fourth outfield type. I think Mitchell is that guy that makes a ton of sense. I had Bazana's speed on the list too, because I think that's an impact tool for him. But I obviously took his hit tool, so I wasn't gonna double up there. There's other guys who could have gone, like you said, Welbin, Jonah Advincula. But yeah, there's no guy in this list where I'm like, yeah, this guy's got standout speed and he's an impact type prospect. There's not. You're right. It's literally just Kahlil Watson. All right. So quickly, let's talk about, you got to do power, and then I'll do defense.
I'll just raw power. I'm gonna go Schubart, like raw power and exit velos.
Wow.
Does anyone have a higher exit velo in the system?
Yeah, hard to say. I mean,
it's just like raw power. Like, Jace is a better prospect. Don't get me wrong. There's a lot of guys who have power who are better prospects. Dean Curley's even got, like, I think average power was a better prospect. But if I'm just talking pure raw power, high end exit velos, it's Schubart, and that's why they drafted him. Even though all the data is terrible, even though he played poorly against bad competition, even though he's probably a first base only, like there's so many negatives. He got taken where he got taken just because he's huge and kills baseballs. And if you can work with him at all, like maybe you have something there. If you don't, right now he's a poor man's version of Noel.
Yeah. I didn't have him on my list at all. That's interesting. I had Rosario, Watson, and then Bazana, just because of Bazana's ability to get to his power in game because of the approach.
I was just looking raw. I was looking
raw power. Rosario's way up there for me. Rosario hit the crap out of the ball when I saw him in Lake County when he made contact. Like he pulls the crap out of everything, and it whistles. Defense, I was between Petey Halpin and Aaron Walton. But I think Petey Halpin's defense is the one thing. That's the reason he's on the 40-man roster, honestly. That's the reason he could have a major league role. So I'm taking that defense.
Yeah, I could see that. I just didn't consider him because he wasn't in my top 30. But you're right. He's definitely a better defender than Churio. I didn't view him as top 30 guy, so I didn't have him there. And Walton's a good call. I probably should have gone Walton over Churio, but whatever.
Yeah, Walton's got the ability to impact the game with his legs and his glove, and we'll see what everything else looks like. We'll do pitching eventually here on this one. Thanksgiving. I'll be with you, giving you some Guardians talk. We're going to talk about who the Guardians' most likely trade partners are this offseason, if they make a trade. We'll talk about what we've learned about ranking prospects as well. So make sure you're tuning in as you're making your drive to Thanksgiving to have some turkey. Happy to be with you. Happy to talk Guardians on Thanksgiving with you.
And if you can't do it on Thanksgiving, make sure to tune in while you're out there doing your Black Friday shopping. Or just, whatever you have to do. Maybe going out to get a tree. Whatever you're doing, make sure you're checking us out. Thank you for joining us. Remember to rate and review, download daily. It helps. And go Guardians, go.